Well, let's talk about D-Day because Michael Pirrie joins us now. He's the nephew of D-Day hero Richard Pirrie, and the Ministry of Defence has invited him as Richard's nephew to represent a new memorial established for this year's 80th anniversary of the history-changing invasion, of course, at Normandy. Michael, very good morning to you. Welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be with you.
No.
And it's a pleasure to be back here in London. It's I'm sort of following in the footsteps. It's a pilgrimage, if you like, for an uncle I never met.
Right.
When he was based in the UK, he spent a lot of time between assignments in London. London became his second home, second city after he left Melbourne in his late teens, and was seconded to the British Navy, to the Royal Navy. And that's how he became involved in the big D-Day operation.
Right. And where did he go to those beaches from in this country?
Well, from Portsmouth, which is the centre for the UK's D-Day celebrations and commemorations tomorrow.
Right.
So one of the great war historians of our times, Les Carline, said that you have to see the ground to understand the wars and the battles that were fought there. So I'm here to see the ground in Portsmouth, where my uncle departed on the HMS Invicta with a crew of British and Canadian on board, and he was the only Aussie. Was quickly nicknamed Digger. But we know from correspondence back home before D-Day that he greatly enjoyed his time with his British and Canadian and American counterparts.
Right.
So,
and what was his experience of the day itself? And which beach did he land on?
Well, he was in HMS Invicta, landed on Juno. That was their beach. That was their target beach, codenamed Juno. And he was given, like, an almost suicidal mission. The massive armada flotilla of ships heading towards Normandy across the English Channel that morning when Richard turned 24. It was his birthday as they crossed the Channel. Wow. They were parked on the horizon, out of sight of the beaches at the time. There was a great fear that the Nazis had cracked the code and that they would be ready and prepared to ambush them as they stormed onto the beaches. So my uncle was asked to take a small spotter boat that he was commanding and take it in as far as possible as he could to the beaches there, and try and identify the Nazi encampments on what was a very heavily fortified cliff top, try and identify where the garrisons were, and then radio that information back to the gunners on the ships behind him so that they could then pound and bombard those sections of the cliff tops that my uncle had identified were holding the Nazi garrisons. He had done this, nothing on this scale had ever been attempted before. He'd done similar spotting missions in Sicily and other parts of Europe. But if anyone has ever seen the opening scenes of Private Ryan, you'll understand the sense, inescapability of death that morning on those beaches, the imminent presence of death. My uncle was identified for this job because of his ability to manoeuvre small naval craft in difficult coastal conditions, and his ability to actually see objects on the horizon. He had a very good spatial awareness. He was able to identify, Mike, so accurately where the Nazis were on Juno that morning that they were pounded and they were neutralised. The Nazis on the cliff top. And my uncle's mother, when she got a letter informing her that her older son had been killed, they said in the letter that so efficiently and comprehensively had he done his job that every single one of the disembarking troops from Invicta got onto shore safely. That was thousands of troops. So he actually had managed to save thousands of many people before he was actually assassinated himself by the Nazis. He actually became a prime target, we were told later in all the analysis of what happened on D-Day, because the Nazis on top could see that how many of the troops were coming off his ships were getting to shore safely, and that meant they were able to establish a beachhead and then that was an operational base on the beach that they could then use to move further up onto the beaches and then climb those cliffs and move inland to help liberate the towns that were under the control of the Nazis.
Absolutely. What an extraordinary story, and what an extraordinary man he must have been. You must be very proud, Richard. So you're here for the big commemorations, the big celebrations, and we wish you well. It's going to be quite a week, I think.
Yeah, it will, Mike. And there's a bit of a slight royal history sort of turning the full circle in a way tomorrow on Wednesday. The Bravery Award that my uncle was awarded posthumously was authorised by the King at the time, and so 80 years later, the new King will be attending the big ceremonies at Portsmouth with the new wall with my uncle's name on it, representing Australia.
Right. That's great. Well, listen, I'm sure you're going to have a great day. And Michael, thank you very much indeed on behalf of all of us for what your uncle did, Richard Pirrie. Incredible stories. When you hear them, you just can't quite believe that was what life was like back in those days. The 80th anniversary of D-Day always makes me kind of just sit back with incredibly raw admiration. He just described what his uncle did on that day. Sailed from Portsmouth, got there. Incredible.